"Leave your brother alone, Sammy. He's just excited," Quinn instructed, trying to put an end to the squabbling. Sammy crossed her arms and walked ahead. "Be nice to your sister, Denny. Starting at a new school is hard," Quinn whispered to Jake. "Yes, Mother," Jake murmured to Quinn. He ran to Sammy and put an arm around his sister. Sammy pretended to be mad, but Jake was too cute to ignore. "Come on, Sammy, don't be mad at me, please." Jake pulled at her arm until Sammy dropped her arms. "You're so annoying," Sammy shoved Jake. "Yeah, but I'm your big brother, so you have to love me." Jake stuck out his tongue at her. Sammy stuck out her tongue too, but she smiled at Jake. The kids, however, failed to notice that they were about to run into Beatrice and Cheryl, loaded down with shopping bags. "Hey, watch it, kids!" Beatrice snarled at them. Cheryl turned up her nose at the children. "How rude!" "Kids, watch where you're going," Quinn yelled. "Apologize to the nice ladies now." "We're sorry, we weren't paying attention." Jake turned toward Beatrice, but Sammy pulled him away before he got a good look at her face. "Sorry." "Come on, Denny, the bell is going off. Classes are about to start." As the kids ran on ahead, the snippet of Jake's voice she'd heard stopped Beatrice in her tracks. She tried to get a better look at him, but the kids were rushing to school. "Sorry about them. They're just excited," Quinn explained to Beatrice before walking away. Beatrice shook her head. "I'm losing my mind. I can't even shop without that kid haunting me." Finally, Beatrice and her mother, Cheryl, made it to their destination. A sky-high tower block not far from the park, where the women were meeting their lawyer, Sid Feldman. "Tell us what was so urgent on the phone that we needed to rush over here." "I may have discovered something." Sid pulled out a folder from his desk. "Spit it out," Beatrice snapped. "We haven't got all day." "Something unusual about Dr. Quinn, who works at Roosevelt Memorial Hospital," Sid revealed. Beatrice stared at Sid blankly. "The name doesn't ring a bell." "That's because it's not her real name," Sid replied. "What's her real name?" "Jenny Monroe." Beatrice and Cheryl gasped. They ripped off their sunglasses at the same time. "The surrogate? How did she get back to New York?" Cheryl asked. "That's not what's important to me or to you right now. What's dangerous is that she's here working at the same hospital where she delivered those 3 children." "This could be a huge problem for us," Cheryl agreed. With that, Sid moved a photo across the desk of Quinn and her 2 children. Beatrice looked down at the photo. "The boys look practically identical," Beatrice noted. "It's almost uncanny how alike they are," Cheryl agreed. Beatrice thought back to the boy in the park, the brother and sister that had almost run straight into Beatrice and her mother, Cheryl. The girl that looked just like the one next to Quinn in this photo now. Beatrice stared at Quinn in the photo. Her eyes widened at the realization. "We have to keep the boys separate from one another," Beatrice demanded. "And from Fred," Cheryl added. Beatrice stood up suddenly. "Where are you going?" Cheryl asked, but Beatrice was already out the door. Later that afternoon, Beatrice stood by the entrance of the school she saw Quinn and her children walk into earlier that day. She had to know. She had to know if her hunch was correct. She was early, and the kids had just been released for the day. She waited for Jake, that spoiled, rotten kid, to come out. Then she saw him by the entrance. Beatrice smiled at a passing teacher and entered the courtyard. No one stopped her. She came up behind Jake with slow and measured steps. "Jake," she whispered. "Jake Smith, what are you doing here?" Jake froze. He turned to look up at her. "Jake, come say hi to your mommy." Beatrice held out her hands towards Jake. Then he ran inside the school. Beatrice replaced her sunglasses and walked out of the grounds. She had a smile on her face. Later that night at the Smith mansion, Denny stared at the chalkboard in front of him full of numbers and equations. He followed the path of numbers to the end with his worn-down piece of chalk. Very good, Jake. Now we're on to the science portion of the class. Mrs. Robin, the teacher, pulled out a hefty science book to place on the desk. Denny hated Mrs. Robin. She was too strict and tapped him with her ruler whenever he slouched or got an answer wrong. He hadn't been outside at all today. He wanted their nanny, Nora, to make him his favorite snack. He wanted his mother, Quinn, to read to him. He even wanted his dumb sister, Sammy, here to annoy him all day. I hate science. Can we do something else? Now, come on, Jake. You're my best science student this year. We can go back over the previous assignment first. Denny sat down next to Mrs. Robin again until there was a knock at the door. Oh, Jake, my sweet boy. Beatrice held out her arms towards him. Jake looked up at Beatrice. Say hi to your mother now, Jake. Mrs. Robin tapped Jake on the shoulder with her ruler. Mind your manners. You're my mom? Beatrice took a calming breath. This kid was just as spoiled as Jake was, but she had to win him over if she was ever going to remain married to Fred, and more importantly, keep her money. Yes, it's me, darling. Come downstairs. I made dinner for us. You can cook? Beatrice forced a laugh. Of course not, dear. That's what Chef Julian is for. Beatrice took Denny by the arm and led him down the stairs. Denny did not like Jake's mom. She was not as pretty or as nice as his mom, Quinn. She wore weird clothes and too much makeup. But dinner with Beatrice was better than science class. Fred Smith was stunned when he walked into the dining room to find Beatrice and Denny waiting for him. A massive dinner spread out on the table. Are you okay that Beatrice is here, Jake? Denny looked at Beatrice, who hadn't stopped smiling at him since they sat down. I guess. Denny shrugged. He was just happy that he wasn't in science class anymore. How did you even get in here? Fred snapped at Beatrice. Beatrice rolled her eyes at Fred. I still have a key. Fred sat down and glared at Beatrice. You're not welcome here, or anywhere else around Jake. I made that very clear. Beatrice placed a hand on Denny's shoulder. Look, Fred, I've apologized to Jake. He's willing to give his mother another chance. You didn't apologize to me, Denny blurted out as Beatrice's grip on his shoulder tightened. Yes, I did, sweetie, but I can say it again. I'm so sorry. Beatrice forced a smile after she spoke. Okay, Denny agreed. Beatrice finally let go of him. Beatrice smiled at Fred. She knew Fred was confused by their son's behavior. The last time Beatrice had seen the child, he had been running away at the sight of her. Now he seemed indifferent to her. Beatrice was determined to work this in her favor to get Fred back. Fred's phone rang. I have to take this. Are you all right here by yourself for a moment, Jake? Denny nodded. Fred looked unsure, but stepped out of the room. Beatrice leaned down to whisper into Denny's ear when Fred left the room. I know who you are. Denny froze mid-bite. He looked at Beatrice in the eye. She held his eye contact. You don't know anything, Denny denied. I know you're not Jake Smith. Beatrice smirked at him.
Hi, Quinn here, and if you're wondering what happens next, click on the link in the description to listen to the full audio series. You can also watch the next episode here in the playlist.